I think I'm gonna have my first Joe Rogan moment here, where he would say, oh, when you train, well, I can't do his voice. But essentially, when you train, and that's what I learned, for example, because I trained for my first marathon this year and ran one. And there, the whole thing is about you don't try to go over what you should do. You can push yourself hard, but you can easily push yourself over the edge. And if you do, so burnout is one effect, but especially with muscle training, when you watch and really learn about what athletes are doing, they always go into this uncomfortable part because that stresses the muscle, it breaks it. But then the main thing they need to do, really take care of, is the healing process, right? The quicker they can heal, the better, and you can heal quicker. There was one YouTube video I watched where he said, look, you can power yourself out on a Monday, and then you can't do anything on a Tuesday and Wednesday. Then if you're lucky enough, you can do something the rest of the week. But if I do half of that every day of the week, I will have done more repetitions, and I'll actually work with my muscles more, and I've given them more time to repair. Absolutely. And I will consistently outpace you, right? So that's the balance you're saying there, and I think it applies to the gymnastics. It applies to going to the gym. It applies to I'm an ex-skateboarder. The whole thing about being able to fall off and bail and know when it goes wrong 1,000 times is fine. If you slam and you break a bone, you're out of commission, right? And that doesn't help. Exactly. So that kind of moderate approach, you can see this everywhere, and it's interesting, and it's nice to have all these stories to bring it in and say, well, exists here, learn from it, because it must be true, right? So I leave that as a comment at this point.
Yeah. No, I think that this is why I think of it as being, there are ways that you can throw yourself in the deep end unintentionally and without a plan. And then also, if you're a leader, there are also ways I think that you can, by design, create the kind of desperation that leads to learning, that leads to the unfreezing of the way teams work, that triggers people to go out and find new resources and learn how to do things. So doing it by design, which is in the sense of doing it with the intention of triggering learning, is exactly, I think, Marcus, what you were talking about with designing a training regimen so that you are able to push yourself to the level that causes new development without pushing yourself so far that you basically debilitate, right? And I think that's a really important thing to say, which is discomfort and desperation are good when they are done by intent, with intent. And that's my position on that. And I think going back to this question about automation and whether jobs that are stable and well-defined are at risk of being outsourced, offshored, automated, roboticized. I mean, I don't think this is a good thing, but I also think it's inevitable, because if your job can be documented fully in advance and always stays the same, never changes, I think, as you point out very rightly, it is 100% ripe for being sent to someone who is less capable, and then eventually being replaced by a robot that is completely reliable, or an algorithm that's completely reliable. So I think the meta point, which maybe now is a good time to make, is, so I teach in a university now, and one of the things I find is that even the education system that we put students through is teaching them that discomfort is something to be, eliminated, run away from. They're not trying to become uncomfortable so that they learn. And a lot of students are, in fact, debilitated by challenge. And I think this may be where you're trying to go, Troy, with the question. But I think that from the individual employee's perspective, as well as the organization's perspective, what you really need to do is you really need to be training people to be better at being challenged more by going through this very intentional, carefully designed regimen of progressively increasing challenge. Because if not, then what you're doing is you're really building an organization that will very quickly be disintermediated first, and then after that, automated next. And also building employees that will be disintermediated first and then automated next. And that's not a good thing.
Not for society at large as a whole.
No, and not for the organization and not for the individual either. It's just bad for everyone. It's good for it's good for our machine overlords, but not good for anyone else.
Yeah, and the way our current capitalist structure is set up, it's only good for the shareholders. But that's another of our favorite topics that we won't go into.